At the beginning of chapter 4, Nick goes on a whole few pages of just describing the types of people that come to Gatsby's party. So basically, it's talking about we have all of these different types of people, lots of different names, different character types that come to his party. It's a wide variety of people that come. After that, we jump into Gatsby pulling up to Nick's house and directly inviting him to lunch with him. Now, Nick's a little off-put because he's like, oh, I have never actually been invited by this guy aside from his party. So he goes with him. He's got this fancy car, and Gatsby starts to open up on almost this list of, hey, here's why I'm a great guy. I wanted to tell you all about myself. List it out. And Nick is a little bit off-put by that, as you would be. They end up going to lunch. They meet somebody named Wolfsheim, who also talks Gatsby up, but Nick is a little nervous around Wolfsheim naturally because he's kind of a fancy thug vibe that he's getting from him. He's a little nervous about it. And at lunch, they actually see Tom. Nick introduces Gatsby to Tom, and then Gatsby disappears, and that's where we kind of end that. But Gatsby does say, hey, I'm telling you this, Nick, because I have a big request for you. And Nick's like, okay, what's the request? He's like, well, I don't actually want to tell it to you. Jordan will. So when Nick goes to tea with Jordan later in the day, Jordan gives him the full lowdown of Gatsby and Daisy's history. So we learn that they actually have a past together and what that past looks like. And that's why in chapter 1, Daisy, when she hears the mention of Gatsby's name, she goes, Gatsby? What Gatsby? It's actually a pretty famous line because she knows him from the past. So Jordan tells Nick that Gatsby would like Nick to invite Daisy to tea at his house. So we have Nick's house right over here. So right here is kind of a secret rendezvous, not letting Daisy know that Gatsby's actually going to be there. So it's kind of like a weird surprise blind date, like an ambush almost, but in a sort of romantic way. So this is Nick's house. And that's where he wants to have the tea with Daisy. Nick is obviously flabbergasted by this. He's like, what? What's happening? Naturally, as you would. But decides that he's going to do it for Gatsby. And Gatsby makes some preparations at Nick's house, and then we have the introduction of Daisy and Gatsby at Nick's house for tea. And originally, it's pretty awkward, as you can imagine, Daisy being a little ambushed. But it gets better, and Gatsby ultimately gives Daisy a tour of his house. It's a pretty fancy house. They bond, and that's where we wrap up chapter 5.